A little over 2 years ago, I built this device sitting right in front of me. Now, it sent me on a 2-year-long journey that I could have never predicted. Let me explain. I built this device to test sanders, sandpaper, and dust extractors. Now, back when I built it, my friend John and Matt and I decided the first thing we were going to do was to test dust extractors. So we gathered up a DeWalt, a Festool, a Surf Prep, a Fine, and a 3M extract to test. Now, here's a little clip of each one of us kind of picking our favorite for who we thought or what product we thought would do the best. All right, Matt, you know what we're testing today. Which one do you think is going to come out on top?
Yep, I'm going to have to be the sucker and go with the Festool.
Okay, that's cool. I think the 3M extract is going to come out on top. What do you think, John?
I think that you guys just took the two I was going to pick. So I'm going to buck the trend here and go with the inevitable loser, which will be the DeWalt, and hopefully I can ride that show pony to inevitable defeat.
Can't believe it. That's amazing.
Everybody else is basically in trouble at this point.
Yeah.
DeWalt is the new front runner. I chose the correct extractor. I'm just calling it right now.
The test was really straightforward. We put a sander in here, the same sander for all the extractors, a brand new piece of sandpaper for each test, and then we ran this for 2 minutes. And then what we did is we look along here and measure the amount of dust that was collected on this black surface. Ready. Unofficially, Maggie picked Surf Prep. She's been helping us record the video in the background. So this is the Surf Prep test. Commencing in 3, 2. Yeah, that's impressive too.
But
This is better than the 3M.
It is.
there is nothing.
The reason I showed you that test that John, Matt, myself, and Maggie did a couple years ago is to talk about what I'm doing now in that 2-year journey to get here. But I won't leave you hanging on the results. Surf Prep was hands down the best dust extraction system according to our test. And then it was a close second between 3M and DeWalt, and then it was Festool, and then Fine came in last place. But as you can see in front of me, I drank the Surf Prep Kool-Aid and I drank it hard. I've spent the next 2 years basically testing all of their products. I have got every single one of their sanders, both on the electric and the pneumatic side. Fortunately, in the shop, Maggie likes pneumatic or likes electric, and I like pneumatic. It's not really a performance thing. It's just what I grew up with, pneumatic in the industry, and Maggie's always had electric. So, and Surf Prep has both of those things. Like my favorite sander that they make is their little 3-inch pneumatic sander. This thing is extremely handy in a lot of places, and I'll talk more about that in an instant. Now, the one thing I've learned about Surf Prep over the last couple of years is that they make great products. They're constantly improving and innovating their products. And even more than that, they have phenomenal abrasives and customer service. And to me, that's really what it's all about. The next thing I want to talk about is our dedicated sanding area. Now, we've been using this for a few years. We've got a raking light here, dust extractor, boom arm, and most of our sanders are right here. And this works 30–40% of the time. But what we've been finding is a lot of times we're taking everything down and moving it out into the larger area of the shop to do sanding on larger projects. And that's really a pain in the butt. The solution to that was to build a mobile sanding station or find one. Now, Surf Prep has a kind of a cart mobile sanding station, and we use that as a base to build our dream mobile sanding station, at least for woodworking. And I'll get to what I mean here in just a minute. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to show you how we took Surf Prep's basic mobile sanding cart, which they don't actively sell to the public. They use them for displays in stores, but if you're interested, they will sell you one. But that's what we use to trick out this incredible mobile sanding cart. And this is one of those things that I wish I would have built 20 years ago. We are loving it. What we did was add holders for all the different sanders. So we've got 5 sanders on the cart. Now this one in particular, I did something fun with. Now with this one, we use the foam pads on it, I'd say 80% of the time. Now we looked online for some holders, maybe something we could download in 3D print, but there wasn't anything that let you store the sander with the foam pad on. So I designed one in SketchUp that would do both of those things, so we didn't have to take the foam pad off when we were storing it. Now this also works without the foam pad on, and it's got a nice secure hold. On the other ones, it's just pretty standardized holders that you'll see all over the place, where you've got ones for the 3-inch, the 6-inch, and over here, the 5-inch. Now having the Bamboo 3D printers makes this kind of stuff so awesome. We were able to just print these off, and then to add them to the cart, we used some double-sided tape and then stuck them to the cart where we wanted them in the positions, and then drilled little holes through. And then Maggie added these little small kind of tapered head bolts to hold them in place. And what I'll do is either come back with some hot glue, or I have some little rubber grommet type things that go over the end of the bolt, which I'll add at a later date if I can find them. Next thing we did is put on this top. Now when this cart comes, this top isn't on here, it's just a tray in here, and on the back side there's some holes, and I wanted to cover those up. So what we did with this is just cut out a piece of MDF and put EVA foam. So this is an EVA foam, relatively expensive stuff. We had some left over from our truck project. This is a 70-pound foam. It has dual colors on it, so we were able to do a little CNC work and make it look pretty. And then we also added some tracks in the top, and I'll explain that in a little bit. See, on this one, we're going to put the pneumatic dust extractor, and what I mean by that is this one works with electric, but also you see the inputs there that you can hook an air line to, and then when you turn on the dust, or when you turn on the sander, it also turns on the dust extractor. And what's really cool about these is the air lines are inside the sanding hose. Now, a little bit about hoses. I'm not a big fan of these hoses, and I'm not picking on Surf Prep. I'm not a big fan of any of them, especially in the sanding situation, because that's a hard plastic, and if you're on a job site, or you're sanding, if you're sanding a finished surface or even something soft, that can kind of mar it up a little bit. Not that it's a big deal, but I like to avoid that. Maggie and I made these sanding sleeves. Now, we've made them in the past before for our setup in the other room. In this case, we got a little Surf Prep love going and made some vinyl prints for them. Maggie ironed them on, and then we sewed these up, and these are just Velcroed on here. But this made a really big difference as far as comfort of use and any potential issue with a finished surface or a wall that might have been finished already. And this was pretty much a straightforward thing, but honestly, I won't have sanding systems without the sleeves on them anymore. I just love having sleeves on. Improvements is this boom arm. Now, we've designed this boom arm so it can be posted on either side of the front. We've got some pipe here with a reduced line, or a reduced diameter, talk much, that this other section over here can go on top of, and that gives us the height that we need to get that boom arm up out of the way. Now down here, because we wanted to keep everything below the surface, I couldn't just cut a big long boom arm, so we made these two short arms right here that have a slip fit together. Now the bottom of the boom arm just slips right over the top. And then the Velcro straps hold the sanding sleeves. Now that's what it looks like with the boom arm fully installed, and it pivots and swivels back really nicely. Now we do that so when we're working on large tabletop surfaces or other things, we can keep the vacuum line off the ground, and it's a very comfortable position to be used in. So that worked out really nicely. We haven't got a chance to use that one extensively yet, but we are loving it so far. These T-tracks that I showed you earlier, they have a real purpose, and that's for a hold down system. In this case, I cut out a couple of vacuum pucks on my CNC machine, and I've got a remote controlled vacuum hooked up to it. So I can just take my, whatever they are, pieces of plywood, hardwood, or if they're cabinet doors, and I can set them in place and just turn on the vacuum. And that's going to create a nice seal, so I don't have to hold the piece of material on the cart. And it also means I can put much bigger doors and panels on here without having the worry of them falling off. Now when I want to shut it off, I just hit the remote and it releases it from the vacuum. That's pretty cool. Now, I know a couple of you are going to comment about noise, but trust me, when an air compressor is going, the sanders are going, and everything else that's going on in the shop, that noise is very, very subtle compared to everything else that's happening around the shop. And it works really well. Just like that. This is my favorite. The other things I like about this cart and the way it's set up is even though it looks pretty compact, there's some storage in it. So I can take my little vacuum pucks off of here when not in use, lift up the top, and I've got a nice spot in here to store them. So I never have to worry about where they are. And the other thing is on the back side here I have storage for all my sandpaper. So I'm never very far away from a sheet of sandpaper if I need a new one. Now this cart is really awesome. Now this is completely set up for a woodworking shop or a cabinet shop. Now I have a design in mind for another type of cart that I would set up more for pro. So it would be a crossover between a cabinet shop, woodworking shop / metal shop, or maybe a place that does car work. And I'm going to build that one pretty soon, and I'm going to put the pneumatic in that. I'm going to move all the electric to this one, or I might build another one of these because this is pretty awesome. Now, on to the next thing I want to talk about, and we'll just take a little bit of time here, but I feel like it's one of those things that's kind of a misnomer out in the world of YouTube when it comes to sanding paper. When you first start down that journey of upgrading your sanding system to make life a little bit easier and get those really amazing finishes, it can be a little bit tough to know what sandpaper does what. And I love to keep things simple. Everything in my shop, even though it may look a little complex, is designed with simplicity in mind. For instance, if you were to go and look at the ton of sandpaper that we have in our shop, while we have a few more things than these, the lion's share are these 3 types or 4 types of sandpaper. We have the red riptide, white lightning, and yellow sandstone. Now, if you're just getting started, those are the 3 things that you're going to want, and let me explain. So the red riptide is a little bit better quality than what you might find at Home Depot or Lowe's, right? And it costs less, and it's one of those sandpapers that's really aggressive, so it's good for getting a job done fast. So think softwoods up to hardwoods. It's fine for hardwoods as well, but it's not going to have the life that maybe the yellow sandstone would or the white lightning would, and that's okay. That's not what it's designed for. It's designed to get the job done and get the job done quickly without clogging up like some of those store-bought ones do. Next in line, we're going to talk about the yellow sandstone. Now, if you walk into any professional cabinet shop across the country, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find yellow sandstone on everybody's sanding stations. Now, this stuff right here is great for things like melting away cross grain. So let's say you ran a door panel through a wide belt sander or through a drum sander, you're going to have that cross grain kind of hatch that's left behind. The finish guys are all going to be using yellow sandstone because you can pattern that out just by quick once going over it, and it just melts it away really nicely. So typically in our shop, you're going to find this in the 180, 220, and then sometimes a little higher than that grit. We very rarely go lower than that with the yellow sandstone. Now with the white lightning, this is a must-have if you're going to do any hard finishes. So think like acrylic or epoxy or lacquers, or if you're pouring epoxies and you're finishing the top of the epoxy and want to remove a lot of material quickly, we're going to have white lightning, and we're going to carry that in all the grits from 80 on up to 220 and sometimes a little higher. Same with the red riptide. We keep a large variety of red riptide in here, and this is kind of our go-to. Let's get the job done. We're not worried about burning through a few sheets. So these are the 3 that we normally keep in our shop, and it's really nice that we can go to one place, get everything we need at a really good price, and that's one other reason we love Surf Prep. Now the other 2 things that you're going to see in our shop are going to be foam pads, both for the 3x4 sander and for the 3-inch sander. We have this same variety for those sanders as well, but we find that we're using foam pads more often because on the 4x3 sander, we're using that a lot on contours and edges of things and surfaces of molds and moldings and round surfaces. So think, chair legs are, stiles on a rail on a stairway or something. Now, the other thing that I love, and this is one of the things I said earlier, their pneumatic 3-inch sander is my favorite for sanding live edge and doing signage. When you look around our place, you're going to see a lot of wooden signs. And in those smaller areas, I can get right into the lower areas from the CNC cutout and sand those really rapidly with the 3-inch sander. And I also find that when I'm doing big, thick live edge, it's really easy to control that without sanding away those points. I can dull the points a little bit, but not sand them all off so it looks really rounded. And I really like that kind of natural look from live edge. And this little 3-inch pneumatic sander shines at that. And this is also my go-to when I'm doing any kind of metal work or even refurbishing the headlights on a truck. So my truck, they get yellow after a while, and Surf Prep has a whole kit where you can go and completely refurbish the headlights of a vehicle you know what I'm talking about, where they've kind of yellowed out. Again, 3-inch sanders. So after you get your 5-inch sander and your 3x4, this is the bad boy right here. I'm telling you. One thing probably worth mentioning is the 3-inch pneumatic does not have dust collection on it, which is kind of nice because I can just grab my air hose, plug it in, and get my sanding done. Now, that's one thing that you'll want to keep in mind if you're in a small enclosed space and you want to sand with this thing. Make sure you're wearing a respirator. Anyway, that's the last 2-year journey that Maggie and I have gone in the world of sanding, and it's been a crazy one. A lot of theories that I tested that I thought were true or heard online weren't true. What we found is that the balance between economy and performance fits very well in those 3 sandpapers that we just talked about. And I really like the simplicity of keeping everything in one place. So I know when I go to Surf Prep website, I'm going to get everything I need in one spot and not have a whole bunch of different vendors that I have to deal with. And through them, I can hit everything I need to do, and it does a really great, high-quality job. There's a reason why well over 2,000 professional shops around the country pick Surf Prep. Everybody, thank you so much for taking your valuable time to watch this video today. I really hoped that you learned something or found something that would inspire you to make some improvements in your sanding setup. Now, as always, there's links down in the description box for many of the things that we talked about today. And if you feel like we've earned your subscription, we'd love to have it. So don't forget to head down to the description box, hit that like button, and subscribe. And if you really liked it, hit the bell notification so you get notified when our new videos come up. We'll see you in the next one.